The DualSense controller is easily one of the best controllers and definitely the best one for the PlayStation 5, obviously. However, many people can't really get a PlayStation 5, which to some, it could defeat the purpose of having a DualSense controller, or maybe you just wanted a controller like this for your Switch and PC with RGB lighting, remappable buttons, and yes, vibrating triggers. So with that said, introducing the PS-P03 controller, a PlayStation 5 controller for your PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC. So let's go ahead and dive right in. For more content, do make sure to subscribe to this channel because we upload fairly often and focus on all sorts of tech products. So do make sure to leave us a like and comment any of your thoughts down below while you're at it. It really helps us with the algorithm. And if you want to support us further, then we've actually got a Patreon open which offers early access to content and special insight to projects that I'm always working on in case that is something that interests you. So links to everything down below. The exterior design consists of plastic, and it does feel almost identical to a DualSense controller. I mean, it certainly looks like it. From its design to the specified gritty texture on the back, which is comprised of dots, and the buttons also feel pretty different, and we've actually got some key buttons on the front: a home button, a 3D button, a turbo button, and a mod button, which is going to be right in the middle. There's also going to be a headphone jack at the bottom, and you'll also find a switch to switch between the different platforms that you want to use this controller for, and there is even going to be the different lighting options on the very front. You also get an M1 and M2 buttons that are meant for remapping to your heart's content. I will say that many people will find this particular feature useful, and what's also nice is that the remapping occurs on the controller itself, and no third-party software is required here. So when it comes to the lighting on this controller, you can actually switch in between the different colors, and even the rings around the thumbsticks light up, which is pretty awesome. It cycles through red, blue, green, a fading design with multiple colors, and chroma cycling, which is my favorite, but the thumbsticks always stay blue. Now, I don't have an issue with this in particular, but I do wish that there were more color options, like purple, for example, would have been great. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are going to be 3 special buttons on this controller. The 3D button is meant for switching between your different stick movement speeds, such as slow mode and back to regular mode. The mod button is to adjust the vibrations across this controller, which is really nice, and I tend to keep it at around 75% strength, but you can turn that off entirely if you wish. Then there's going to be the turbo button, which is going to be for setting up very specific functions of your own, and once you press that button, everything will just go to town. The controller will start doing whatever you programmed it to do from the start. So yeah, you definitely do get a lot of flexibility with it. And now I want to talk about the performance here. I wanted to especially talk about how great this controller was for something like Dark Souls Remastered, a game that I would argue benefits greatly from a good controller. So this controller had a lot of greater ergonomics going for it, and reaching for each button felt very comfortable. And also wanted to note that although the buttons on the back are pretty light, I never really pressed them accidentally. Also, the star of the show here for actual combat had to be the vibrating triggers, because I felt like I was getting great feedback from my attacks, and that's something that I haven't gotten out of any other controller to this day. On this game, I really appreciated the vibrating triggers here, and I think that they make a difference in getting great feedback from your controller. However, the face buttons and the D-pad did feel a little bit too mushy for my liking, since they would sink almost all the way to the bottom when pressed, so I would have preferred a little more clickiness there. And that's probably why I wouldn't really recommend this controller for fighting games, because I don't think that the D-pad is very good for these types of games. However, if you're into racing games, you will have a hell of a time with the triggers and the amazing thumbstick, as long as you don't mind having the triggers constantly vibrate on you, but I personally kind of prefer that for most games, and as I mentioned earlier, you can turn this off if you really want to. So you can also use this controller on a variety of platforms, like PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, and a PC, but technically you can still use it on your PlayStation 5, even though some games might give you issues since it's recognized as a DualShock 4 controller and not DualSense, so that's definitely worth considering too. But this controller mostly feels like a DualSense controller, which I think is pretty cool, and I happen to really like this layout for games on the Switch, especially for my Souls games, which I'm very particular about when it comes to what controller I'm using to play these games. So when it comes to the battery life, it's not really very long here. I get about 2.5 hours with the RGB lights on, and it's not much better with the lights off, but you do get an additional 30 minutes, I suppose, from my own testing at least. I do wish that the battery life was longer, but you can use this controller wired if the battery does end up depleting on you, so that you can charge it while you can still game at the same time. So in conclusion, I actually really like this controller. I think that the triggers are really cool, and the fact that it feels and looks like a DualSense controller right off the bat, but with RGB lighting, is something that I can eternally appreciate. The battery life is really the only thing that bothers me about it, but considering that my gaming sessions aren't that long, it doesn't bother me too much to just leave it charging after I'm done gaming. But I can see how this would get kind of annoying for some people. However, would I recommend this controller as an alternative? Absolutely. I would recommend this controller for mostly console gaming, and if you wanted a PlayStation 5 controller for your PlayStation 4, I think that this is a pretty nice build, and I'm comfortable offering a recommendation for it. So thank you so much for watching this video up until the very end. It is always appreciated when you do, of course. Now, I did want to make sure to leave some links in the description if you are interested in getting this controller. And now another thing that I wanted to note is that I wanted to give a very special thanks to all of our patrons, beginning with the tier 3s, which are going to be Omar, Aaliyah. Thank you so much for all of your support, because it really does go a very long way. Now, for the rest of the patrons that are going to be showing up right around here, right on screen, you all help out a lot as well, so thank you so much. Now, with that said, don't forget to follow me on Twitch and also on Instagram. On Twitch, I do tend to stream every now and then, and I tend to have conversations over there. You can pretty much ask me anything. So with that said, this has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and until next time, enjoy.